All righty. Good morning, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. And those of you that are watching this at a later date after the live, I hope y'all are doing well. Today, we are joined by a multifaceted and multi-skilled individual, shall we say. We're going to have a lot to cover. Our guest today is Mr. Robby Robinson. He was, if I'm going to have this correct, I hope I don't butcher it right off the bat, with the first Cav a bit, the 2 CORP Mike Force. He was with SOG at CCN with RT Intruder, as well as RT North Carolina. And he ended up going through 1-0 school, scuba school and special forces, and quite a few other things. We got some Billy Wall mentions and some Uncle Nick Brockhausen mentions. So we're going to have a very interesting talk and very fun talk and historic talk today. So, Mr. Robby, we can't thank you enough for joining us today, sir.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. And we both got our SOG shirts on this morning. We were just saying, gotta show our love and respect. And we got a CCC vet that's been on the channel before, Mr. Terry. Hope you're doing well, Mr. Terry. And Daniel, hope you're doing well. All righty. Well, Mr. Robby's an open book for us here. And I first spoke to him probably about 2 years ago, maybe a year or two ago. And we were trying to set some stuff up for a while. I, of course, got crazy busy. He's busy as well. He, thank goodness, did a podcast with Jason Collins. I'll link that into the show notes to where y'all can listen if you haven't listened to that. 2 great episodes with Jason and Jim Hollingsworth with Mr. Robby that is just outstanding. And we're going to cover some stuff that they didn't cover in here today. But we're going to start at the very beginning and kind of get the origin story of Mr. Robby, shall we say. So, Mr. Robby, where and when were you born?
I was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1949.
Detroit, Michigan in 49. Okay, you're older than
Yeah,
my
I'm
father.
old, but I look marvelous.
You do. You are aging quite well, my friend. Did you not to get ahead here, but did you spend a little time in Tennessee? I thought you were a Tennessee
Yes,
boy.
I did.
Okay.
Just as it happened, my mom had moved. Mom and dad had gotten divorced, and eventually she left there, and we went to Waycross, Georgia for a while. I hated that place. Basically, it's because I was 9 years old and it wasn't with my dad. That was the main thing. But from there we went up to Tennessee, and then I went back up to Detroit and lived with Dad for a while. But when I started high school, I went down to Tennessee. And up there in Detroit, I was in St. Stephen's Elementary, which was a Catholic grade school. It was only a couple of blocks from the house. And in Detroit back then, Detroit was a marvelous place, but there was a church and a school every 8 blocks. So, I mean, it was, and you go downtown back in those days, it was like you see in the movies, the streets all crowded and all kinds of activity all hours of the day. It's not like that now.
Post WW2 boom.
Yeah, it is improving though. So it went way down there for a while. It went from a population of over 1 million to about 600,000, and then I mean it dropped like a hot rock, and then now it's starting to build back up.
Car factories. Without those car factories pumping out cars like they did in the heydays after WW2, it really put a hurting on Detroit.
Yeah, really. That's true.
Yeah. So with you kind of splitting time, well, before that, did you have any family military history? Father, grandfather, uncles, or anything?
Oh yeah. The Robinson family is a Scottish family. They're part of Clangun. And Clangun is known as being the most warlike clan in Scotland. So that's the reason some of us wound up in the United States. The family here, they got run out. They said, we don't want you here anymore. And during the Highland clearances, they shipped a lot of them out. So, but my family's been involved in every war. I mean, my grandfather was in, well, let's see, take that back. My great grandfather was in the Civil War. I had uncles in World War I. World War II, my dad was, as a matter of fact, my dad and all his brothers, my Uncle Roy, my Uncle Alvin, they were all in World War II together. My dad left high school to join the Army, and then he finished high school after he came back. So yeah, we got a lot of military history. So it's a tradition almost to go in there.
Did you, I mean, with that much, I mean, I know the older guys, as you mentioned with Jason, both WW2 and then you trying to get in special forces, how quiet these guys were. Did you hear about their exploits, or at least hear about the war to kind of make you say, hey, I might be following in these guys' footsteps here in a few years?
No, not really. There'd be occasional mentions of what happened in World War II and so forth, but they didn't tell any war stories as such. It's just something that you know that was going to happen. I was in high school. I joined the Army from high school, and at the outset I decided to make it a career. So I volunteered to join, and had all intentions of making it a career. I was only 17 at the time, but I had a multitude of reasons. I left high school to do that, got my GED while I was in basic training, so I got my high school diploma that way, and then just went on. And first thing I did was I was hoping to get assigned to Fort Campbell at the time. I wanted to go to Fort Campbell because it was real close to where I was in high school, and of course my old girlfriend was there and everything. So I was, hoping to get there so I could hook up with Linda again, but no, it didn't happen that way. Nope. So they sent me initially to field wireman school, so I became a pole climber, and so I was doing that, and then went over to Vietnam, and they said, we don't need any field wiremen. We're making you a machine gunner. So they changed my MOS and put me on, of course I started off as the assistant gunner, hauling all the ammo and so forth.
Where did you, when you ended up joining, not to jump so far back on you there, but where did you join and end up going through basic and all of that?
Well, let's see. I went through, joined in Nashville. And then went to Fort Polk for field wireman school.
Wow.
And then from there headed overseas. So it was, I wasn't over there very long, and spent a lot of time going over. What happened was they sent me over there and they found out I was too young.
Who did you deploy with that first go round?
It had been the first Cav.
Oh, the first Cav. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it was in the 3rd of the 7th. 7th Cavalry. I think it was 3rd of the 7th, which is funny because later on I was in 3rd of the 7th Special Forces Group. So that made me think about that. It was in 3-7 twice. So I went over there and they said, you're too young, to send me back. And I went to Fort Ord to the CDEC, Combat Developments Command Experimentation Command, which is part of the 41st Infantry. And
Yeah,
I
no.
re-enlisted there. I said, I don't want to do this. I want to do something more. And I turned 18. And, you know, and they didn't want to take anything going back to Nam. And I said, okay, well, I'll re-enlist. I took what's called a short tour, re-enlisted, went to Special Forces. I had to go to jump school and then over to Fort Bragg for training group. That was in 1968. So 67, I was in Nam. In 68, I came back and re-enlisted.
Wow, that is wild. As you're first getting going over there underage, coming back, and then you getting to re-enlist or deciding to re-enlist, and at 68, hot as we know, very hot. You're starting to go through special forces. That is that is crazy.
Yeah, because they had a rule there, you couldn't be in Nam unless you were 18, and I was only 17, and they didn't really notice that.
Okay, I didn't know that.
They cut the orders. So I was legitimately in the Army, but because you had to be 18 to be in combat. So I got over there and was, well, this isn't going to work. I had mentioned somewhere to the commander that my 18th birthday was coming up. I said, what?
Oh yeah, I meant, huh?
So I got sent back.
Wow. I can only imagine the look on their faces, like, what'd you just say?
Yeah.
So you get back, you get accepted to go through training group 1968, and sent down to Bragg. What's that like for a young guy, but you've already clearly got a lot of experience coming in, but what's that like for you now crossing over into the special forces realm?
Well, that was very good thing for me. I mean, I really wanted to do that. So I knew I wasn't going to go back to Fort Campbell, but to that area. But it was a good experience. I met a lot of friends there in training group. I don't know if you ever talked to Carl Franquette.
Oh gosh, CCS and CC veteran.
Yeah, we were in training group together.
Oh man!
And so there was a bunch of guys there I was in training group with. I ran into later on. So yeah, Carl's a pretty good guy. Yep, and he's with Wolkoff there, I think.
Yes, sir. That's Mr. Ed.
Well, Wolkoff was also in training group with me.
Oh wow! Dang.
So yeah, we were friends there, and we hung out together when we could. But say when it went back to Vietnam, when he went to Vietnam, he did it right out of training group. That's what Carl did. I was assigned to B Company of the 7th, and then that's when I went to scuba school. There, I was on the Gabriel demonstration team. This was in '69, and it was on the rappelling tower. I was on the demonstration team for that, and there just happened to be an open slot in scuba school, and I happened to be checking my detail roster out there, because you had to check your roster every day. And the sergeant major said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, right now, working over there in Gabriel team." He says, "You want to go to scuba school?" And I said, "Well, yeah." So that opportunity presented itself. So I went to scuba school in '69. And then while I was in scuba school, it came down on orders to go back to Vietnam. And Carl had already gone. Mm-hmm. He left straight out of training group. So I was a little lagging behind him there getting to SF. Wow.
I mean, that's pretty rare of you to be able to get a scuba school spot that early on as a young guy. I mean, that's pretty big.
Yep. And
a notoriously hard school from every SOG man
it's
and
one of the
such.
hardest military schools I've ever been to. It was physically, it was very, very demanding.
Is this is the scuba school or scuba team, I should say? Is this also where you first encountered David Baby Son Davidson?
No, no, we were on the same B team together at B Company of the 7th.
Oh,
So we were seeing each other every day, and we would just chew the fat. And he looked so young. He and I just get along. I looked like I was 12 years old at the time. You've seen that one picture of me with hanging out with my Mountaineers, and I was probably well, yeah. Well, that's when I lost those teeth, but just scooping off. Yeah, so I lost that, and when I'm hanging around with my Mountaineers, a group of them, and we each have a beer in the hand. If you look at me then, I was looking very seriously. I was, let's see, I must have been 22 years old at that time, and I just looked like a kid.
Good-looking young man.
Well, yeah. And the codes thought it was really funny because I could tell them I was a cherry boy and they believe it.
Oh, they love that. They loved that.
And so so I went when I got through with scuba school. I went back over to Vietnam. They sent me to B Company, and they didn't know quite what to do with me. They wanted to make me a truck driver, and I said, I don't want to do that. They had no A-team slots available, and I went over to the Mike Force. Some friends of mine over there that I knew, and talked to the sergeant major there at the Mike Force, and he said, "Well, yeah, okay, come on over." They didn't want to have anyone that didn't have combat experience, so I went on over there, and it was they assigned me to Recon Company. So I was in Recon Company, Mike Force.
Where was B20 located?
That was in Pleiku.
Pleiku, okay.
And the C team was in Pleiku.
Okay.
So they were right across the street from each other, in fact.
Now, did you, I hope I'm getting this correct because this is crazy if you did have guys there with you. But I thought I remember hearing that this is the time between Mr. Billy Wallace stints in SOG to where he's actually in the Mike Force with you, and maybe Sammy Hernandez is with you at this point?
Sammy Hernandez was with me, not Billy Wall. I didn't meet Billy until later on.
Okay.
And what had happened was I had gone over I put in paperwork to go to CCC, and I was accepted into CCC, and it went over there. And as soon as I started the process, there he is. As soon as I started the process they said, you need a TS clearance. I said, yeah. So I'm told I can get an interim. He said, no, you can't. They did what was called an INTNAC clearance, an interim national agency check, instead of a full national agency check. So they said, well, we can't let you process in here, so we're going to send you back. I said, well, I had a going away party up there, and I don't want to go back there. How about if I go up to I CORP and go to the Mike Force up there? So I was in 2 Mike Forces at that time. So I went up there and joined the Mike Force, and then eventually my national agency check came through, and they awarded me a top or a secret clearance that could be upgraded easily. So I was there, and at the C team, and also the Mike Force was located on the same compound with the C team up there.
Is the I CORP, where was the I CORP Mike Force?
In Da Nang.
In Da Nang. Okay, wow.
Yeah, and there was a big difference. The 2 Corps Mike Force Well, the Mike forces overall were not advisors. But in the I CORP Mike Force, they tended to have more of an advisory effect than the 2 CORP Mike Force. The 2 CORP Mike Force, it was all being led. And so I was up there in the I CORP Mike Force, a pretty good group of guys. And Baby Son Davidson came through, and he was coming through up there, and I was surprised to see him in the C team at the club. And we were sitting down, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, getting close to the end of my tour now. I guess I'll go back to brag." I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm heading over to CCN. They're closing out CCS." So he was heading over to CCN. And I said, "Okay, well, this is I guess that's a cool thing." He said, "Why don't you join me?" And I said, "Well, I can't." He was only had one other American on his team. I said, "Why would I want to do that?" He said, "Well, you could go back to brag and pick up pine cones, or you could continue the mission." I said, "All right." So I put in my paperwork to extend and go to CCN, in which case I had my top secret clearance was granted by that time. Well, the secret clearance, they just had to upgrade it. It was just a very simple thing to do. And Baby Son went on over to CCN, and I went home on an extension leave. So I was home for 30 days and visiting family and the like, and then came back to CCN. Now, weird thing happened there because a plane landed at night up in Da Nang, and there was no one there to meet me because it was late at night. The plane had gotten delayed for whatever reason getting up there. So I was on my own there in Da Nang. I said, "Well, I knew the area very well because I'd been up there in the C team for a while." And so I said, "Okay." And I grabbed the guy and he was heading on out. So, "Where are you going?" And he said, "Going there." So basically I wound up just catching rides. It was like hitchhiking to CCN. Showed up at the gate, and it was late at night. And I showed up at the gate, and the gate guard said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well," and showed orders. "I'm supposed to report in here." And they said, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll put you up in the guest quarters here." So they had quarters, unassigned quarters is what it was. So I spent the night there, met up with the sergeant major the next day, and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm supposed to be going to join Recon Company." And he says, "Okay, I'll send you down to meet Billy Waugh." And that's Billy Waugh in the picture there. And so I went, signed in over at Recon Company. And he said, "Well, what are we going to do with you?" I said, "Well, Baby Son said that I could be on his team. That's the whole reason I'm up here." And he says, "Baby Son died last week." And that was a hell of a note, that happened. And I said, "Oh, no, that's no good." So I said, "Well, I guess I'll do whatever I can." So he put me with RT Intruder, which did not have a full team at that time. They had all the mountain yards they wanted. They didn't have any Americans. So I was there, and then Baby Son Davidson, or not Baby Son, excuse me, Lloyd, Baby Jesus Lloyd, and Watson, Captain Watson,
Doc
joined
Watson
us there, and we went to 1-0 school together, and we came back and stayed together as a team. So and basically, it was just temporary housing for us until we went to 1-0 school, and it turned out there's Alan Lloyd, and he got Caviani gave him the nickname Baby Jesus.
Yes.
And do you hear about that?
Will you tell us how he got that nickname?
Yeah, we were doing some training on strings going on out, and the helicopter crew swung us out over the ocean. But somebody in the crew, I don't know who it was, said, dunk them in the ocean there. And Caviani was with us at that time. We were all going to 1-0 school together. Dunked us into the ocean, but Lloyd was lighter than the rest of us. So only the bottom of his feet got wet, and the rest of us were wet up to our chests. And he came back up there and said, how come you're not wet? I said, he walks on water. That's baby Jesus you got there. So Caviani named him that. And so he got that nickname. It didn't really stick all that much, but yeah, this is John. John and I were in a training group together also.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, so I knew him beforehand. And that was, like I said, it was a lot of guys I knew were up there. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you some of the guys, of course, like Mr. Terry, he as I said, he was at CCC in the chat. And you know, you come in and know a few guys, and then he was in the Hatchet Force and mentioned, you know, things are separated. So if you were lucky, you might see a guy you saw in training group. If you're lucky and you saw him pass by and were like, oh my God, we're in the same place. But guys in recon would see each other a little more. And it sounds like you walked into almost a little portion of your entire training group class there.
Yeah, well, you know what was really funny is I extended over multiple times. So I mean, I spent a lot of time in country, and towards my next to last extension, I guess, I walked into the Recon Club and didn't recognize anybody.
Wow.
And you know, the guys I knew were probably on a mission at that time or what have you, but I didn't know anyone in there. And someone says, "Who's that?" And I heard, "Oh, that's one of the old guys." And here I was looking like I did with that one picture, and I became one of the old guys. So that was funny as all get out. So, so at any rate, that's how I wound up on RT Intruder. Now, RT Intruder and RT Crusader, were the only two teams in CCN that were not named after a snake or a state. And they were from the old, they were the oldest teams in SOG. They came during the old Spike teams. They were holdovers from the old Spike teams that were all TDY from Okinawa.
Wow, I was curious about that. Being y'all still had a few of the old state name teams like Tilts, Idaho, and New Jersey and stuff like that, but a lot of snakes, as you said, Habu, like Mini Mac and Nick and all of that. You mentioned Doc Watson, and before we get a little bit deeper, I've heard some interesting things, and I know sadly he and Baby Jesus met their untimely demise on that terrible mission in the A-Shaw. But I've heard sayings that he was a college man and was actually there potentially to write a book on SOG or something. Are those rumors true or anything?
Not quite.
Okay.
The truth is that he was a college guy. He had a PhD in psychology.
Whoa.
But he wasn't there to be a psychologist. It was not a straight psychology degree. It was, I'm not exactly sure how that worked out, but so he did not go to medical corps. Anyway, he was there, and Billy wanted him to write, encouraged him to write a book on SOG. So he said, "Yeah, I think I'll do that." And that was Billy Wall had kind of groomed RT Intruder to be one of the first Halo teams. Of course, it didn't happen because he died prior to that. So Billy was supposed to go with us on that mission, and something happened. He couldn't go. So Sammy Hernandez came with us, and Charles Wesley came with us on that one mission. Wesley and I went out on strings together on that during that mission. That was it was a terrible thing. We tried to go out on ladders, but as we were climbing, the helicopter started spinning, so we had to just drop off, fall back down to the ground. So that the helicopter, we were up so high, and the humidity was so high that the chopper wasn't gaining any lift. So they finally, after they tried that twice with the ladder, and then dropped strings to us, and we hooked up. And the chopper took off and tried to raise us up and didn't get us above the trees, and then went nose down for its to pull out. So we were getting smacked by the tree limbs on our way out. And then when they came to and we didn't know what was happening. We were out fine. We got up in the air, so we're just banged around and slapped around a bit, but we were okay. And then as we came into a fire base, and the chopper was going to land there, but they weren't paying attention to the fact that we were below them, and put us right into the wire. And one of the stakes went into my side, one of the engineer stakes, and tore me up, broke a rib too, and so forth, and gouged me a bit. With nothing fatal, but then they realized, and they picked up, and then they lowered us back down, and it hurt my back so bad I couldn't walk right away. And that's when we found out the other chopper had gone down. Apparently they were trying to lift so hard that the top rotor just completely came off, and the crew told me that it was reported that they could see the rotor climbing up through the sky, no chopper attached to it. And that's the one Watson and Lloyd were on. So Alan and Doc were on that one. And
Mr. Sammy broke loose.
Sammy, pretty sure that the crew chief realized what was happening and cut the ropes because there was too much weight before the chopper cut his rope. And I guess they figured they'd come back. And he started cutting ropes, and Sammy fell down to the ground, didn't know what had happened, kind of knocked him silly for a while. And then he went out and wandered back out to basically close to our insertion AO. And the whole thing was that we had enemy coming in on us. That's the reason we needed to extract. And you could smell them. What it was, they would hunker down in these underground places and light a fire at night, and the smoke would get on their clothes, and you could smell them coming through the bush. And so, in fact, Sammy said that. He said, "Smell that?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "They're coming." Oh. And so he made it back to the one of the LZs, and they came in the next day, mind you. This is the next day. He's trying to flag them down, but you saw how he looked like an indige because he had that chino look, so
brown and squat, and
yeah, and the way his eyes were, and the crew chief, they were about ready to open fire on him, and said, "Wait a minute, no, that, get closer." And then Sammy crawled in, and he never knew that the helicopter had gone down. He didn't know what had happened. So
was Mr. Cliff? I heard Mr. Cliff Newman was with y'all at a point, or maybe the Bright Light.
He was on the Bright Light mission for that.
Jeez Louise.
Cliff, great guy.
I've heard rumors that there are potential talks to try and upgrade his award that he got to a Medal of Honor, actually.
I wouldn't doubt it, and he's one of those guys that deserve a lot. So
all of you gentlemen.
Yeah, he was on that. Sammy Hernandez or Charles Wesley went back on the Bright Light. I was banged up and couldn't make it.
Wow.
So
Mr. Wesley, from what I've never been able to find out, I know you mentioned he may have been on Hatchet Force, or a guy that did everything. I've seen him covey ride on a Recon, his strap hang, Halo. but it sounds like he was a jack of all trades and was
He
quite good.
he was a good guy. He kind of like an admin guy within not he wasn't really admin. Billy kept him around and did not put him on a team. Kept him around, needed him to go wherever he needed to go. So he would go to different things and he would lead different different deals.
Mr. Fix-It, it sounds like.
Yeah, and Sammy was pretty much the same way.
Mm.
In fact, the funny thing with Sammy, he had an RPD machine gun. As we're going through the woods on that mission, his barrel kept falling out.
Oh my God!
And he had loosened up for quick reasons, you know, and it just the lever he'd hit a bush, something the lever would pop up and his barrel would come out. He didn't take that to any more missions after that. But yeah, Wesley and I were good friends, and we were working together at Bragg later on after we retired, and he went over on the one thing with as a contractor over to Iraq. I did as well, but apparently that's when cancer showed up, and he later on died of cancer.
Mm.
But he and I were really good buddies. When I first went down to Bragg, we'd left New Zealand and moved down there, and I'm looking for a job. And he said, "Come on down here," and I stayed with him at his place until I got the job and got a place to stay.
What a guy!
He and I were good friends.
Jeez. So, and I believe this was the beginning of the op, February 16th of 71. Robby Robinson 1-2, Baby Jesus Allen Lloyd 1-1, Doc as listed 1-0, and Sammy and Mr. Charles as strap hangers inserted into Laos on the border for a road watch interdiction. And as we heard, terrible incidents. And I've heard several times Mr. Cliff and Mr. Charles, as a matter of fact, as of 23 and Mini Mac went over to try and find traces of them and some of the aircraft and everything, but no luck as I've heard. But as you mentioned right then, you get pretty dadgum banged up here. Are you out of commission a while? I know you mentioned going through 1-0 school. Had you already been through 1-0 school before this operation?
Yeah, I had, and then I was sent down to be an instructor in 1-0 school for a while.
Oh,
and I didn't get along with the cadre there for some reason. Well, I did with some of them, but one guy making the decision, and they said, "Well, you can go back up to CCN." I said, "Well, thank you."
okay.
So I went up to CCN, and it was I don't know why we didn't get along. We just didn't. And he was in charge of the instructor group, so that just wasn't going to work.
Yeah, just one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went back up there, and let's see. I turned my RT Intruder over to Finn Honorma, and when I got back there, the RT North Carolina had been hit really bad, and I'm not exactly sure the time frame on that, but they were all pretty much tore up, and the 1-1, either 1-1 or 1-2, the 1-0 had been killed. At any rate, the OC had gotten really shot up bad, and he wasn't going to be able to continue. And what was his name? Durham, I think. He asked me, because I spoke, his team was a Raw Day team, and I spoke Raw Day.
Was it Mr. Duran? Ronnie Duran?
That's it, Duran. And he haven't seen him in many, many years. I don't know what happened to him. But at any rate, he asked me to take over the team because I spoke Rade. And the guys on his team were with me in the Mike Force. I knew them in the Mike Force.
Wow.
And so I said, yeah. So I took that team over and kept it all the way up until January 72. Probably turned it over actually before that. And would have been December 72, I think it was. I turned that over to Frank. And then and I hung around for a while at CCN before I got back to the States.
With and I'll end up saving one of these questions for a little bit later, but when you got to North Carolina, I know Uncle Nick mentions in one of the books when he's actually getting into SOG, he mentions the Irishman, Mr. Bernie O'Connell. Did you work with Mr. Bernie on North Carolina, or was he the iteration of North Carolina before you took up?
He was before me.
Okay.
And that is O'Connor is his name.
Okay.
And he was the one that got part of his calf got shot off.
Ooh.
So that's why he wasn't able to take over the team. So he was running for a while. He was just running the safe house that we had.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a lot of funny stories about that safe house. You mentioned a couple of names of the guys involved. The safe house that we had, you came in through the door into a foyer, and then you would turn to the left, and there would be a beaded curtain, and then you go in there into the bar area and everything else. And Mac was there with I forgot who it was he was with. He wasn't with Mac was with a lot of guys, but yeah, he wasn't with Nick.
Was he with Jimmy Johnson, maybe?
That's who it was. I'm pretty sure it was Jimmy Johnson. So we came up there one time, and apparently Jimmy Johnson and McLaughlin were being silly, and they were standing there at the bar naked. So Frenchy Castagno walks in, and he looks through the curtains. He said, well, this must be what you do. So he got naked, and he walks in, and Castagno was hung like a stud mule. I mean, so he comes walking in, and it's kind of been like the trunk swinging on the elephant walk, coming in there. So the McLaughlin looks over and then just nudges Jimmy Johnson and points, and they just quietly went and put their pants on. Yeah, figure that's no competition.
Shamed them to get their clothes back on.
Yeah. So, anyway, Frenchie just thought that's what you were supposed to do. There's a lot of strange stories about funny stories about Frenchie. I won't go into a lot of them, like the dance of the flaming asshole and everything. I won't go into that. It was he was quite a character.
Animal House with guns and grenades.
Yeah. Well, the last I heard of him, as I understood it, he was in China, I believe, working in one of the Adidas factories. That was the last I heard of him. Wow. And I don't know that that's true because it was like third or fourth hand knowledge. But he was quite a character. He was in the French Foreign Legion for a while. And they were trying to do a coup at one time against the president of France.
De Gaulle.
Yeah. And that did not go well. So he gone. So he had to leave, and next thing you know, he's in the American Army. Just so he was quite a character, and like I say, I know a ton of stories about him, and witnessed a lot of them. So I was there at the safe house when that happened.
You've got one that I think, since we're talking crazy stories, and I think you can tell it without getting anybody in trouble, but the time that you and Uncle Nick are in, and I think Mini Mac as well, I think y'all are in Quang Tree maybe, and it's raining, and y'all need a ride, and I think y'all acquire a ride and may have to act German. Could you tell us that story?
Okay. Basically, it was McLaughlin and Brockhausen had stolen a Jeep, and they because it was raining, and I wasn't with them then. I was just with them to help repair the vehicle. So they were taking things off, and of course having to repaint things on there, and that was at Quang Tree at the launch site. And it was raining a lot. We couldn't get into the AO. The choppers couldn't fly. So that was where the rain came in. So at any rate, they would run around on this Jeep till they ran low on fuel. And one of the things that they never did change was the really cool brass gear shift knob. And they just thought it was cool, so they never did change that out. They head on up to one of the areas up there in Quang Tree, one of the conventional troops were, and were asking if they could get gas. And just being the crazy guys that they were, Brockhausen says Mac was driving, and they were in a German uniform, helmets and so forth. Not really a full German uniform, but obviously not U.S. uniform stuff. And Brockhausen says, "Let me do the talking. If I say something to you in Germany, just say jawohl." And yeah, that would have been the uniform type thing that he was in. So they get on up there, and he goes to ask him in broken English, like German accent. He says, "I'd like to get some petrol." And, meanwhile, the company commander is eyeballing that thing because of the gear shift knob. It was his vehicle that they had stolen, and they're eyeballing it. And finally, the question comes up: "So, where are you guys from?" And he points down the hill to where ours was, and it was all fenced in with no entry and all. He says, "Wir from the 169th Light Mongolian Horse Brigade." And he said, "We have Mongolians there. We come in the helicopter. They're riding their horses, just cutting with the swords and killing everybody around." And one of the other guys said, "I think they're CIA." So they went ahead to directing him over there to get some gas. And Brockhausen turns to McLaughlin, who's standing there at attention, like a good driver should. And he says something to him in German. And Brockhausen says, "Jarvo." Brockhausen, he's from southern Germany. And they got away with it. I don't know how they did. But Brockhausen was always a little nuts anyway. Funny guy. Good friend.
You guys and y'all's when y'all have free times on y'all's hands, the stuff y'all could get into, boy, it is his books, prime example. And guys, if y'all don't have his 2 books, y'all are greatly missing out on some great SOG history, but also some great fun, like Mr. Robby's describing it. He is quite, I call him the Hunter Thompson of SOG. He is just a one of a kind character.
Oh, he is. He's
Jeez Louise.
And he was quite a cartoonist as well. So he drew a cartoon one time showing a German airplane that had landed on top of a Zeppelin, and a guy out there with a pickaxe getting ready to punch a hole in it. He said, one of Billy Wall's good deals.
Good deals.
Billy was known for getting us into deals that would probably get you killed, you know.
Just like in the book, anytime you knew Billy was looking for you, you start hiding anywhere you can.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think it was Jimmy Johnson did that one time, and running into another hooch, and Billy had come in there and said, "Have you seen Jimmy?" And the guy say, "No, Sergeant Major, I hadn't seen him." Kept pointing over to where he was. It was either Jimmy or McLaughlin, one or the other, that had done that. And it was just, like, we had a good time. It wasn't all, you know, on your, well, you know, we were young and stupid. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done this stuff.
Oh yeah, you had to be a little crazy to even get in the ball game to begin with.
Yeah, it was one of those things where you got to, you have to have a sense of humor to do that. If you didn't, you were going to leave, because it was a volunteer organization. You could leave anytime you wanted to, and it was. If you didn't have a sense of humor, you just weren't going to make it at all. You
got to laugh and keep from going insane, as they say.
Yep.
With and you mentioned speaking raw day, and I forgot to bring that up when you were with Intruder, but now you're with North Carolina, and I think I've got a photo of was Mr. Trucks your teammate while you were on RT North Carolina, Charles Trucks?
Charles Frank.
Okay, Franks. I think
that's Frank in the center there. And by then we had already gone to baseball caps.
Oh, the transition to the task force instead of.
Yeah, we were Task Force 1 Alpha Echo. USRV Tag. Then became USRV Tish. And they were trying to hide the fact that 5th Special Forces Group was still there. And this would have been after I turned the team over. That was probably December of '71. So the Frank had the had RT Intruder, or North Carolina, North Carolina. So he had North Carolina, and those guys in there with him were people that I worked with in the Mike Force, and brought them up there. So I knew those guys pretty well. Sorry to say that most of them never made it out of Vietnam.
Jeez.
They were good guys. There was a horror story one time that they had gone back down to Bamituit after MAC V SOG had closed down. So they went back to Bamituit, which is where the headquarters for the Rade were, but they were all herded up at one point and put into a Connex container, and in the Connex container, they put brush all around it and burned them alive inside that Connex. That's a story I heard, and I can't guarantee that it's true, but this was after the fall of Saigon. So they were really just kind of bundled up. So there was a lot of guys didn't make it out. And I went to one of the Mountain Yard things there in North Carolina, and had pictures of guys and asked about him. They said, no, he's dead. He's dead. So it's just none of the guys there that I was with made it out. And that's just a shame.
That is. We've heard Uncle Nick mention his time he went back to Saigon, and he found 2 of Habu's indige, and they had their left arm at the elbow cut off because of the SCU tattoo that they had for identification purposes. They had cut them off because it was SOG, and they were beggars on the street. And luckily, Nick was able to get them set up and start helping them out. But except for the guys that either stayed in and went to FANK or STD or the Special Mission Force and were able to get out right there when the Americans left. They had a hard fought way of getting out. Of course, we hear, 10, 12 years later after the re-education camps, the boat people coming. But yeah, it's very sad for the Montagnards
Yep.
and all of the Indage.
Yep, they got really a rough road to hoe there.
Yeah, yeah. And
now the funny thing is that when the yards came 20 days, and that was it. And then they were doing productive jobs and everything, and doing great. I mean, see the kids growing up, and they're beautiful children, and well, now they're all adults. Yeah, that part is a huge success story with people coming into the country.
The community in North Carolina is thriving. It's one of the Indage from Cliff Newman and Sammy's first Halo jump, as a matter of fact. He's living in North Carolina. I think he's still alive. He was Troy Gilly at CCS's team leader, 01. And he had 3 daughters. One's working for the government. 2 others are doctors or counselors, and just amazing people. Amazing people.
Big success story. And they had the Longhouse project going on. Well, they built the Longhouse like they'd have in the Montagnard Village.
I've
turned into a historical thing for the history of the yards.
Save the Montagnard people. It's kind of their activity online isn't still going, but it's still going. And I made a donation, and they sent me some stuff, and I've got a few Montagnard bracelets they made me, which is very, very interesting. And that was leading into my point with you, or my question, I should say, with you being in the Mike Force. And it's interesting. We always hear about the Mike Force having the Cambodians or maybe some of the Montagnards, but a lot of the Cambodians, it would seem. You having Rade and being around Rade so much in time, what did you think? You clearly got along with them quite well. Was it when you first got in country? Did you just feel a common kindred spirit with them? Did it take you a minute to start getting with them and really involving yourself in the culture? How did that happen?
Well, yeah, I knew guys that had worked with the Montagnards before at Fort Bragg, and they were talking about how good the people were. And 3 CORP Mike Force had Cambodians, and the I CORP Mike Force had Brew and some Sedang. The 2 CORP Mike Force had all Rade and Sedang Montagnards there, and and I was just very interested in them, and so just wanted to say hello. So I first learned them, and so forth. So I learned to speak it very quickly, and the yards were quite impressed with that, and so they took me under their wing, and they referred to me as Young Day, which is a brother, brother of the Rade. So I like the Rade people. They were very honest, and the Sedang were pretty cool too. The Sedang were mostly up around. Up at CCC, there was a lot of Sedang that were on the teams there because that was their home country. They were a Mon Khmer group, their language base, and the Rade and Jarai were a Malayo-Polynesian language group, along with the Coho. Coho were also Malayo-Polynesian. Now, Coho were closer to Nha in that area. I forgot the exact city that they're centered around their area, but the Jarai, the Rade, and the Coho could all speak to each other. The language wasn't exactly the same, but it was close enough. So they all worked together. And the Coho, I had one guy who was a Coho on my team in North Carolina. And he looked like an island boy. You know, I mean, he was big, and I was, of course, being the 1-0, I was the last one to get on the chopper. The chopper got up, and I had to jump up to grab the skid, and I didn't know that I could hoist myself up because we had been running for quite a while trying to get away from the guys chasing us. And at any rate, he reached down and grabbed me with his arm and just hauled me right in one arm. And said, oh, thank you. Remind me never to piss you off. You know, he was, yeah, just
yanked you like you're a bag of groceries out of the trunk.
Yeah, just like one of the Polynesian boys. And so the Coho were more closely aligned with the Polynesian culture and everything than the Rade. But I mean, as far as their breeding and everything else went, their DNA went on there. So that was he's quite a guy. He's able to pull me up. Now it wasn't all in the air. Of course, I had to put a foot on the skid and everything. But it took a lot of strength to pull me in there. Now, I didn't weigh that much at the time. I probably only weighed 145, 150 pounds, but with all our gear on there, I was well over 200. So it was still quite a chore there, and quite an amazing guy.
Oh, yeah. And that, of course, is a wonderful segue there that you just pointed on, because we have a lot of gear collectors and aficionados on here, and people are curious about your gear loadout, and we'll get to camo and all of that. But what was your standard gear loadout for a recon op? And would a caveat on to that, when you were a 1-1 or a 1-2, excluding the radio, did your loadout change based on you becoming a team leader?
Yes, it did change. They saddled us with the KY-38, which was a secure voice thing. And the 1-0 didn't have a radio. The 1-1 would carry a radio, PRC 77, and the 1-2 would carry the KY-38. And the KY-38 was a heavy monster. I mean, it was really, really heavy. With our loadout, we had our web gear on, or on a rig there. So it was you know, it's been 55 years. My memory is starting to go. I'm trying to think of what they
your stable harness rig.
Yeah, the stable harness. We had another name for it at one time. But yeah, it was a stable harness basically. But on that and around you had your web gear on there. Now, we didn't carry the standard ammo pouches. We carried canteen pouches, and we'd rip the guts out of them. The foam, there wasn't foam, it was fur that they had in there to keep the canteen water from overheating. You know, so rip that out, gave more room, and we stuffed that full of magazines. I could fit 10 magazines into one of those. And that went all the way around. We would have 2 regular canteens back there, and in the around our back here, we usually carried Ringer's lactate in a container. It was strapped to the back. Hang on one second, I'll show you. Oh. All right. Usually the SOG knife was strapped to your gear here. And underneath that was the strobe light. So, yeah, I still kept my SOG knife.
God, that thing is worth a fortune.
I didn't want to get rid of this. It was supplied by in Okinawa in the
CISO shop.
it was completely sterile. There was no markings on it at all. And the steel wasn't the best, but it was sufficient for the job. So you'd have to sharpen it a lot. There you go.
That's Mr. Hollingsworth right there.
Yeah,
I believe you know Mr. Hollingsworth.
That's
and
him.
his,
Yeah. And so we had our ERC 10 radio was strapped on there. And then, of course, you had a compass and so forth. And as you can see, he's got ammo pouches. Those are canteen covers on the front. And those, because we could carry more ammo that way. So it wasn't unusual for me to have about 480 rounds of ammo. And, it was a lot, and that made us weigh a lot. You had in your pocket, you would have a map in our in the pockets on the side of our uniform. We would also have a panel marker so that you could signal lane. And we also carried a signal mirror and just an assortment of gear, but we were all had the same thing. The difference was the radios. Mm-hmm. So the 1-1 would have the PRC 77 and the 1-2 would have the KY 38. So
there's a pretty good show out of your. And did y'all all wear gas mask at this point in time in the war as well?
Yes, we did. We did have gas masks. I forgot about that. And that was also on the front of the gear, so we were rigged out quite a bit.
Yes, I mean,
and we would tape up the end of the rifle, as you could see right there. That was taped over so you wouldn't get dirt in the barrel or stuff in there when you're crawling around trying to get away and shoving stuff up in there.
We see guys that now, you know, everybody has a foregrip or something. And we know you guys started it by putting the M16 grips. Did you ever implement that? Put a foregrip on your CAR 15?
No, on mine I had 40 millimeter grenade launcher up underneath the.
Oh, the 203. Okay, yeah.
That was just my decision as a 1-0 to have that. It wasn't standard. The M203, and so on mine, and most of us didn't put a foregrip on there. I knew some guys that had put an eyepiece up on top of the handle. Those just seem to get in the way after a while because everything you're shooting at, it's mostly just point and shoot. You didn't have time to do much aiming because it was all close contact. Mm-hmm. So you're less than 50 feet apart when it was all initiated. So it was it could get quite hairy.
Oh. Did we also ask because not everybody did this as well. Did you ever carry a sidearm on missions?
Yeah, that wasn't standard. Some guys would carry a silenced 22, and we were all issued one, but we didn't always carry one in the field.
Oh.
A lot of it would depend on the mission. If you had a POW snatch, that would go. And you also had your claymores, and we would, back then the det cord was all white. They didn't have camouflage det cord. So we would take black tape and tape the det cord. So you could set up the claymore mines and opposing each other a little bit. And as you went out, and you had them all linked with det cord. So you fired the center one and all the rest of them would go. So the object being that a guy in the middle would get knocked silly, but not killed. So you'd let the comm come through, blast it, run out there, grab that guy, tie him up. And so I don't know why the silence 22 was even necessary, and we didn't really use it. But I knew some guys that did use it on an operation. They weren't that impressed with it.
Maybe I've heard a lot of guys, as you mentioned, not utilizing it for the POW method, but they utilized it on the off chance maybe dogs showed up or something to that effect.
The dogs, yeah, that would be one reason to have it. I carried powdered CS, so you would get to a spot near a tree, for example, and have everyone pee on the tree real quick while you could hear the dogs barking, and you put that powdered CS down there, and the dogs would come in and sniff right there at the tree, and because they would, and then they'd turn around and you'd hear them yelp, yelp, yelp. And it was, you know,
Won't no more of that.
Yeah, so the powdered CS is something that we carried.
Was that a standard issue, or did guys make up their own concoctions that they thought worked better for dogs and such?
No, we just go to the supply room and say, I need some powdered CS, and we'd get it in a little baggie and put it in their stuff. So they also used to carry speed.
Oh yes, Green Hornets.
You get that for those operations where you had to stay awake for a long time. That got abused by some people, so they quit handing that out after a while.
I can see why. I remember Mr. Chapman with RT Python that that he earned the DSC, and they were having to if they hadn't they wouldn't have been alive. They were all ramped up on Green Hornets for those 2 or 3 days battling it out. That's a hell of a story in itself. But yeah, those Green Hornets were bad news.
So Les is another friend of mine. We used to hang out together. Like I say, those of us that survived and were there at that time became pretty close friends. So
but seeing you guys at SOAR it's like no years have passed. I mean, guys just come up and it's hugging, and it's almost like you're picking up the conversation that you last had at the club or what have you. It's such a beautiful thing to see you guys together like that.
Yep.
So we asked about camouflage. We noticed a lot of the variations, especially through the years. Of 71 seemed to be a big time period of change. We noticed some of the guys had the non-allergic, their blood blood type on their uniform. What kind of uniform did you favor? Did you like to just do the spray paint on the OD, or did you have something?
We just had regular fatigues, not camouflage fatigues. And you would spray paint just your regular blotches on there. Now I had A positive on mine and no penicillin. Wow. So I think one of the guys, and I'm trying to remember who it was, had a real bad allergy to morphine, so he had no morphine on his. And so that they wouldn't hit him up with anything. So the used to call him the human Brillo pad.
The tactical unibrow.
Yep. He would shave, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it looked like he hadn't shaved in a week. So trying to remember his name.
Robert Cook.
Yeah, Cook.
Cookie.
Yeah, and he was another good guy. And I think he started a company, the SOG company, where manufacturing SOG knives and so forth, the replicas. I believe Cook was involved in that.
Oh, I've seen that advertised all over the place, and I was curious who would
I think
dare use SOG.
Now you'll notice that he's got rubber tubing over here on his lapel.
Was curious about that.
Well, if you had to give someone an IV with that Ringer's lactate, you see, you just pull that out and go around their arm to pop the vein up so that you can start an IV on them.
Wow. Did that become a common thing to where y'all would have it
Oh yeah,
up on the lapel?
yeah, almost all of us had it.
Wow. And the pocket alterations right here, always love seeing y'all put those up high.
I didn't do that on the sleeve, but a lot of guys did that.
It's just really cool. You see the guys early on, the tiger stripes, and then some guys were just doing the old school OD with the patches taken off and going out, and then finally started seeing you guys just getting the OD and spray painting lines, and it seemed to be like that was
in the Mike Force. Tiger stripe fatigues were common. So we all wore tiger stripes in the Mike Force. In CCN, we didn't use tiger stripe. We would just do it. And I got, being a smart aleck one time, when getting the uniform ready, I painted a target on the back of it with the thing. I said, "What are you going to do that? It gives it something to look, shoot." I said, "Well, really, my ruck's going to be there, so they're not going to see it unless they're pilfering my dead body anyway." So,
we see a lot of photos of accessories, of course the world famous Rolexes you guys had, the war medallions, the bright light chains. Did you ever were you a gold guy or a Rolex or a medallion guy?
I had a Rolex GMT Master.
Oh,
I bought it in the PX. Back then it only cost about $250. So I bought it. Got stolen from me later on, and everybody went into my stuff and just took it. But the Mountain Yard bracelets I wore, and even wore them on operations. Our sleeves pretty much covered it up, so it was no big deal. A lot of guys went in for a lot of stuff, and I didn't. I gave Martha Ray what was it? It was the words peace made into look like a grenade.
Oh, so, I've seen that as well. And the B-52 style that they made.
Yeah, I gave that to Martha Ray. She had it. It was in the Mike Force, and she admired it. And I said, "Well, here, it's yours." You know.
Oh,
it was just in garrison stuff. I don't know. Well, yeah, there's that. But the other one was that necklace, and I don't see where she's wearing it. Right
no, sir. I was just showing.
Martha Ray. Martha Ray was quite a character. She used to come out to the camps, and she was the only woman really authorized to wear a green beret in
the nation. I mean, she loved all of our troops, but she loved her SF and SOG men like no other. I mean, I know for a fact she would give out her address and everything, and was deadly serious, because I know a few men that actually went and stayed with her.
I did.
You did too?
Yeah, I did. I met a young lady there one time who was making Ivory Snow commercials, and then she sent me later on a movie she had just made, and the movie was Behind the Green Door. And we were showing that at CCN. I said, "Yeah, this girl I've been dating." "Yeah, right." And she turned into a porn star.
Oh no! Oh no!
But I met her over at Martha Ray's, and it was quite cool.
Wow.
So Marilyn Chambers and I actually dated a little bit, not a lot. We corresponded some. But it was kind of a funny thing, because I was bragging, "Oh yeah, she's pretty. She's making all these commercials. Now she's made a movie, and we put it up on there. We had to play some projecting that, and I said, well, this isn't what I was expecting. But my reputation went up regardless.
Oh yeah, I bet you were a hit after that one. You're like,
Yeah.
whoa. Gosh, and we finally got in touch. Her son ended up seeing one of the interviews with one of the SOG gentlemen, and they were speaking about her and how she got him into SOG, and he reached out, and I was finally able to get him into the Facebook group online, and he absolutely loves. He's been getting in touch with some of y'all here lately, and he's loving getting to hear about y'all's talks about his mother. That's one of the other fantastic parts about this, connecting people long past due of reconnecting. Reconnected a few SOG men on here, but as things get going here, I know we've kind of jumped around here, but I know there were, as we already heard, there was a lot of people around that are really big names. I was curious if you could tell us a little bit about your time being around. Well, the first time you were with him in during the GWAT, but Mr. Eldon Bargewell.
Oh, Eldon, quite a guy. Eldon was just a real good soldier, and just real good. He now who he's with right there is David Robinson. We both got called Robby. Get confusing. I don't know what happened to David. I heard some bad things about him at one point, that he got in some legal trouble. I don't know. But Eldon, when he took over as commander of Delta, because he was enlisted back then, we were both E6s together, and he went on and he got commissioned and went over to Delta. And when he took over his command, his change of command ceremony, he sent me an invitation to it. So I went down there and was sitting there watching him assume command of Delta. He's quite a guy. And then next time I ran into him was in Iraq. I was a contractor over there teaching at the Phoenix Academy, was training guys how to be advisors. And he was the G3 for the whole Iraq thing there. So he was there. And like I say, he's quite a good guy. I really did admire him, and going up and getting his commission and so forth. I ran into him after when he was first commissioned as a lieutenant, and I was going through the NCOES at Fort Bragg, and he was there as with the Ranger Battalion, and I ran into him in the theater, and so we got to chat a little bit. And him going to, he avoided a lot of the rifts that were going on at the time, and a lot of that because he was in Delta, he was able to avoid that. But he's quite a guy, and I was very saddened by his death. It was a terrible thing. And as it happened, I was in the States at the time. I normally don't spend a lot of time in the U.S. After I retired, Joyce and I just determined that we would just go to all the places we'd been to before, but this time we didn't have to write reports about it. So we started traveling the world. And now I've been in the States this time for 4 years, which is unusual for me. But we came from New Zealand. The daughter lives there, and 2 grandchildren. And we came back to the U.S. because Joyce's dad had to have some back surgery. So I'm going to mow the yard and everything, and figure 3 months he'll be recovered and we'll get back overseas again. Then I stopped in at the VA over here at the hospital, and they said, cancel your plans for a while. I said, you got a real bad case of prostate cancer. My PSA was really high, so we had to get that treated. So I've been that was 4 years ago, and I've been in the States ever since. But hasn't been a bad thing. We live only about a mile away from her folks, so she can go over and visit a lot. Her mom's always on the phone with her, so they're having a good relationship there. So that's cool. But we're looking at probably at around the end of the year leaving the country again and going either back over to Scotland, because we've lived in Scotland for a while. We lived a year there, and when I retired, we went from Texas, where I was working at that time as an anti-terrorism officer, and went on down to Belize, spent a year in Belize, which is not a place I recommend going. It was pretty cool at one point, but after we were there for a year, we realized, there's a lot of problems here. A lot of corruption in the government, and the roads were just a series of potholes linked together with strips of asphalt. And we went from there. We drove from there through Guatemala and Honduras and Nicaragua and over to Costa Rica. And we spent a year in Costa Rica. And I liked it. I liked that a lot. Costa Rica was everything it was advertised as. And a place I recommend going to if you ever get a chance. We were up in the mountains, so we weren't broiling down there. So we were up about 3,000 feet in a place called San Isidro del General. And it's about 3,000 feet in elevation. The problem we had there was that we were right on a coffee plantation. I mean, the coffee plantation was just probably 50 feet away from us. And one day I woke up and saw coffee blooms all over. It bloomed all along the branches. And it was like snow on top of them, And I called, and Joyce she couldn't breathe. Her head was so blocked up. So she had an allergy with hay fever to all the coffee beans. They really affected her bad. And I said, that's karma. All the coffee beans you killed making coffee, they're just getting their revenge. So we left there and went to Italy for a year.
Wow.
And then came back, went to Australia, visit some friends, and then back over to New Zealand for a year, and then took off and flew over to Scotland, and we were there for a year. Loved that, and then came back. At times, we would spend a little bit of time in the States, and wherever folks were. They were down in South Carolina for a while. We were down in South Carolina, and living right on the golf course. So I drag my clubs out and play a lot of golf. And it was good. And then we went from there back to New Zealand. And we went there. We were only going to be there for a year, but COVID hit. And we couldn't leave the country. They wouldn't allow any traffic in or out. So we were there. What a place to get stuck. Oh my, there's a throw me in the briar pants. It was a great place to be stuck because we were only about 200 yards away from my daughter and her family. So my grandson Kurt was able to walk over and see us. He started school and everything. He's the youngest of my well, he was the youngest. Now this last year, my daughter gave birth to a baby girl. So Kurt is now 10, and the youngster is 1 year old. So he dotes on her. He's so proud to be a big brother. So we were only 200 yards away from him when we were living there, and I wish I could go back, but and we will go back, but it may not be for as long a visit. This is got to keep up with the doctors. The VA hospital here in Huntington, West Virginia, is probably the best VA hospital I've ever seen.
Wow.
It's not big. It's not super fancy, but they've got lots of great equipment and they have very good doctors, and they don't get overloaded with patients, so they know who you are when you walk in the door.
Wow.
And they do not hesitate to send you over to community care if they need it. So, like during the cancer treatment, one of the medicines they gave me caused myocarditis, and that was bad. And so they had to put in a pacemaker and a defibrillator right here, and they just sent me over to Marshall University, the medical center there, and had that done. And no hesitation. So
Marshall's well known. That's a very, very good hospital as well.
Yeah,
geez
it is.
Louise.
And so I've been very pleased with it. So we haven't been all that anxious to leave. The folks still being here. She's got a good relationship going with her mom. But I get itchy feet. I want to go places.
Man, you have definitely traveled. If I wasn't such a worry wart about getting on planes, I would love to go overseas and see some historic sites. I'm a huge history buff, as everyone knows, but God, I'd love to get overseas. Let's see here. We'll do a mishmash here. We've got some questions. We're about at an hour and a half here, and because I won't keep you forever. We've had a good chat thus far. Okay. We were still getting towards the end of your tour here with SOG. I remember, and I'll ask you one because there's an actually great website that has a complete write-up of your operation. I think you wrote it that we'll get into in a second. But did you end up running with North Carolina for a while? And then I thought I heard Jason, or you mentioned on Jason's podcast, you had quite an accident or a spill leaving the field from an operation at one point. Fell out of the helicopter or off the strings one day?
Oh, well, yeah, when I was with, let's see. Yeah, I was with North Carolina at the time, and we got shot up as soon as we landed. That was actually my last mission. And I was only supposed to be in country a little while longer anyway. And Franks was going to take over, and we had to extract right away. And tried to climb up the ladder, and I slipped and fell. I probably fell about 30 feet.
Ooh.
And got up and started saying, okay, so the chopper's flying away. And I'm saying, this isn't good. And I'm limping a little bit. And I said, I got to get into the bush and hide. But then the chopper circled back around and came back down. And I, this time I put my leg straps on and hooked them in and then snapped into the bottom ring and went out that way. And so and that was my last mission. I just said, I had run out of luck and not going to hang around anymore. And I only had a couple of weeks left in country anyway. So
that's what I was about.
The rest of that time just chilling out.
I was going to say, I would have thought with you even having 2 weeks or 3 weeks left, that maybe they would have taken you off active roster and maybe kept you around the compound to train or work or what have you. You going out with 2 weeks, that's pushing the envelope there.
Yeah, it was. It was my decision to go out on that mission. And basically it was, Charlie was in charge. I just said when we got in there, we had too many people moving around us, and they put us in, I'm trying to remember if the team was split a little bit or whatever. So I said, this isn't good. And I talked to Charlie and said, we should get out of here. So we went out, and I was on the same bird with Charlie. So when it fell off the string, I couldn't get hooked in, and it just fell off. And And I just said, well, that's the end of my luck. No more. You got to have one of the things you got to have when you're running these missions is some amount of luck happening to you. You know, actually, it's just making good decisions. It's just saying, my good decision is no more. So they wanted to reinsert the team right after that, and they did, and I did not go with them. And I just hung around and processed out and drank a little bit in the Recon Club and then left country.
And we've heard, of course, from all of the guys with the mole activity, 68, 69 being terrible years for SOG, but people forget how bad 70 and 71 were, especially for CCN, where whole teams were being unfortunately wiped out. Could you tell from the time, I guess you probably already knew it from your first recon, but could you tell even by the time you were first in SOG to where you were that last mission that the NVA knew a lot of the time where y'all were inserting?
Yeah, here was the thing. Because of Vietnamization, they started bringing North Vietnamese officers into the TOC. And
South Vietnamese officers?
Yeah, so they would put in our, not North Vietnamese, just Vietnamese officers. Mm-hmm. And some of them were double agents, so they were giving the information out. And plus, we had the Navy guys that were, forgot their name.
John Walker and all of them.
Yeah, who were selling the information. But so you'd get on the ground and they were waiting for you. When you hit the ground, the first couple of missions I went on were, heck, almost wanted to stay longer than the week that we were on the ground. And, you know, the only reason we're going to ask for resupplies, but the weather started getting bad. And I had been charting the weather and saying every day it's closing in. So we got out that day. It would have been the last day that we could get out, actually. And the window to get out was less than what we thought. So we had been on the ground for like 9 or 10 days.
Dang.
No problem. But after that, the time just kept getting shorter and shorter that you could get on the ground and run a successful mission. If you're going to do just a quick, you know, a lot of times we could drop stuff down there that the enemy could use, and it turned out it was only, you know, radios, things like that was for our benefit. And unless you're going on something like that, it was kind of bad. But it was good example of this was RT North Carolina. Their mission with Duran and O'Connor, or O'Connell. You got me confused now. I don't remember what his last name was. I think it was O'Connor. They were there overnight, and the next day they were surrounded. They had to try to push through and get help. When you don't have radio communication, this was in the days before you had satellite and all that other stuff. So you had basically an airplane flew over you once a day. So you didn't make contact with them at that time. If you made contact afterwards, you were just in trouble till the next day. So there was a story, and I don't know how true it was, of guys using his ERT-10, put a distress signal, and an airline pilot answered him. And the story I heard was, and I wasn't there, just hearing it third hand, I guess. He answered it, and he said, go onto this frequency and call either Hillsborough or Moonbeam, which are the two planes that we had flying support for, and tell them that he gave his not his team name, but his code name for the team for the mission. He told him that it was in trouble, and the next thing you know, I believe it was Moonbeam came in to put in air support for him. So we could, if we got in touch with Hillsborough or Moonbeam, we could basically divert all air assets to us. Now, I'm trying to think of his name. Carlos, no, Castillo. Castillo is his name. I don't know if you've talked to him.
Bob Castillo. Yes.
His dad was one of the pilots for Hillsborough Moonbeam.
Spooky, I believe, or a Spectre pilot.
Yeah, something like that. And and he may have been the one that told me the story. I don't know. I haven't seen Bob in quite a while. I don't know how he's doing. I know that his wife lost a leg at one point, and that was a bad situation. But I wasn't with him when that happened. An accident at a range. Yep, that's him.
I've heard a rumor that I think he was with his dad when the unfortunate RT Alaska operation occurred, and RT Alaska just happened to get their ERT-10 or the radio, and they picked it up. Bob happened to hear Jim or God, I can't believe I'm forgetting the other gentleman's name. Danny Intrican heard one of their code names and said, I know these guys, they're in trouble. And God forgive me, I'm forgetting the rest of it, but they heard and tried to divert over to start helping him. But of course, Alaska was wiped out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Very, very sad. You did an interview with Mr. Hollingsworth's son, who was with Jason on his, and I'll link those in there. A wonderful interview y'all did.
Yeah, well, I had a website up, The Lost Men of RT Intruder. And that's when Hollingsworth got in touch with me and asked me if I knew his dad. I said, yeah, I knew him, and told a few stories about him. And I mentioned that he had a great sense of humor, and he had on his butt, he had this looked like a U.S. grade A certified beef tattoo on his hindquarters there. And he asked his mom. She said, "Oh yeah, he had that." And boy, he got excited. He got in touch with me because he had talked with other people, and they couldn't tell him anything really. And that's when he talked to me, and I said, "Yeah, he had that." So he knew with that story right there, he knew that I knew him, and I invited him out as my guest to the next SOG reunion, SOAR. And then he got to find out the true story. I didn't want to tell him at the time how his dad died, because he had been told that he died in a helicopter crash, because they were trying to disguise the fact that we were even there.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't hear the real story about what happened until he came out to SOAR.
Yeah, and most of us don't. We know they were overrun, but I've heard from Mr. Ken Holmes, who was on Habu, that went in, that it was bad, and that's one of the only missions he did in his 2 tours as a Marine and a SOG man that he wakes up with cold sweats still. That it was just bad. It was just bad.
Yeah, it was a bad thing.
Yeah. To kind of get us shifting here towards the end, and we'll do a quick post-SOG career, but I thought you mentioned having a website, and the guys and gals can read the majority of it, but there's several people in this mission that I thought would be interesting just for you to talk about on the website War Stories, where you take out in, I believe, 1970, Risto Arnarma, Johnny Elia, and Tommy Tompkins on a hellacious gun battle, where y'all actually have to call in Cobras and the whole Megillah. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that op?
Oh, well, we put in, and we went in with a split team. They put both halves of the team in different locations. We were not even together when this thing happened. But at any rate, Finn wrote me up for the Silver Star at that point in time. And then we had to maneuver around and eventually get back around to the choppers. And there was people underneath the chopper as they were coming in. So, trying to warn the chopper crew off that they were landing, and the crew chiefs couldn't see them because the elephant grass was so high it was blowing down over the guys. We got out of that one okay, and I was awarded the Silver Star for that mission. And that was a tough time, and I turned the team over to Finn right after that. And now John Elia, came to a tragic end as a civilian. Now he had asked me, there we go. We were talking one time, we were over there at the Hooch, and I had been looking towards, saw some advertisements while I was home on extension leave for the Drug Enforcement Agency. And they would start you off at a salary as a GS-15. And I considered it, and I had all the paperwork involved in it, all the information. And he was talking about getting out. And my thing was I was wanting to make it a career anyway. So I said, no, I'm not going to go with them. They actually had a different name then. Wasn't DEA. I forgot what the name of it was, but he said, well, can I have this? I said, yeah, by all means. And I'm going to just go on to Fort Devens or something and continue my career. He had no intention of doing that. So he wanted to stay with the government service, but just didn't want to stay in the Army. At that time, you have to remember that we knew the Army was drawing down. We knew that it was going to be harder to get promoted, T7 and E8. And officers were going to get rifted. We knew that was coming. And he had several senior NCOs talk to us about that. So I said, I'll stick it out. But I'll tell you what, it really got stretched out there. I had, 9 years time and grade as E6 before I got promoted to E7. And that was a long time. Then from there on, promotion to E8 came pretty quick and so forth. But there was a lot of people I knew that were officers that got rifted back to E4 and so forth. But anyway, Elia took that paperwork. He got out of the military and went to work for them. And I heard that, I think it was in Louisiana that he was killed.
FBN raid, and he got shot. Unfortunately, I've heard.
Yeah. So it was a sad thing. And there was another Gibson. I don't know. Were you related to Gibson in Special Forces?
No, you mean Mr. Hoot? No, I get that. I get that a lot. I wish I was in the same bloodline as that man, but no, I am a different Gibson.
He was a good guy, and he and I were going to. I put in for a mission that went back over when I was at Fort Devens, and then elected not to. And I told Hoot about it. He went and interviewed for it, and he went and went back over to Vietnam, and then he got killed over there. So again, luck is sometimes just making the right decision. Yeah, there he is. And we were there at Devens together, and our barracks was right next to where they did all the training for this, the nuke training that we
Green
did.
light guys.
Yeah, that was all in the very next building over here. I thought about doing that for a while, and actually did for a very short amount of time. But they, you had to call in every 24 hours, unless you know if you were out somewhere, and they would get really upset if you missed it. I said nope, no more. So,
Yeah, that's too much after coming from SOG to be checking in every 24 hours.
yep.
Devin seemed like there was a lot of SOG guys coming through there after or between tours and after. So when do you officially clock out at TF1 AE and head back stateside?
That would have been January of '72.
Wow.
And I left there, and so I say I turned over the team in December, I think, to Charlie, and then and Tommy Thompson and I were together again in 10th Group, and we wound up going to Denmark together one time, and that was a funny mission. We were just there as support, basically. So we were free to run around Copenhagen quite a bit. And different Tommy Thompson.
Oh, different Tommy. Okay. I was about to say, that's the only other man I've heard mention Tommy. And I was like, I hope that's the same one.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we were there in Denmark together. And then I lost track of him. I don't know where he's gone. So.
Wow. And so you mentioned a career. Do you end up staying with the Special Forces branch your entire time, or do you end up going
No, I
around?
wound up having to go. I re-enlisted again at Fort Devens to go to Germany.
Oh,
And when I went to Germany, they said, "We're diverting you." So I got diverted, and they were cutting back on Special Forces like crazy. So I wound up going to the 3rd Infantry Division, 1st and 15th Infantry, and was there for a while, a couple of years, and then said, "All right, I've had enough of this with his legs and everything." So I wanted to join the 75th Rangers, and they were at Fort Carson. So I put in paperwork to go to Fort Carson. I figured I would just go on over there and join them, and they moved in between my request time and so forth. So I got out to Fort Carson and wound up teaching out at the Camp Red Devil, and was teaching at Recondo School, and then later on became the Primary Leadership Development Course, PLDC. So that later on became that. And then while I was there, I kept putting in to go to ROTC. And they said, well, we want E7s there. And I hadn't been promoted to E7 yet. And they said that wasn't going to happen. But I was applying through infantry branch. And then it came back at one point there. It says Special Forces is now, they were the anti-Special Forces for a long time in the military. And then they said, well, we want Special Forces guys to come back. So I put it in and called Mrs. Alexander. She said, oh, yeah, okay, good. How would you like an ROTC assignment? I said, they told me I couldn't. And I said, yeah, go ahead. So I went out to Southwestern Oklahoma State University and was out there for 3 years and coached the pistol team out there. And I also taught MS1, and I was a full-time student out there as well. So it was a good assignment for me. And from there, went back to 10th Group. And everything had changed then. When I left 10th Group, there was no battalions. It was only companies. And they had changed over to battalion system. So went back over there. And from there, Went to language school for Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, and headed down to 3rd of the 7th down in Panama.
Wow.
And
A lot of SOG guys ended up down in Panama. I mean, I can count 10 on one hand right now. I know of that were.
we were
with
more
Greece.
comfortable in the jungle than we were anywhere else.
I was just fixing to say, trade one jungle for the next, and y'all are
Yep.
right back in the mix.
Yep. So went down to Panama for a few years, and then finally came back up to the U.S. and and I retired there at Fort Bragg at JFK Center. But I first got my ham radio license in Panama, and I was HP2 XNR, and that was my call sign, Panamanian call sign. When I got back to the States, I got the call sign of November 4 Papa Alpha Hotel and 4 PAH. So I've held on to that one. That was initially just a technician class and a general class license, and I've held up all the way through me getting my extra class license. I've held on to that call sign, and so I've used it quite a bit over the years.
Wow.
So I became a ham radio operator officially in 1983.
Wow.
Had a lot of radios over the years.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But they've gotten so much smaller now.
I was just fixing to say the ones you showed off camera. That's why I was like, but those kind of look like ham radios, but the ones I've seen are like the old computers at the colleges where it takes up a side wall of computers or of gear.
Quite a few of them like that. The one that I've got.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah.
See if I can get to it.
Oh yeah.
The one that's right next to the microphone, right over there with a big screen on it. That one will cover everything HF and UHF and VHF. And then above it, I mean, immediately above it, there's a small one with a screen. And that is the 891, and that's strictly an HF computer radio. And it will cover everything from 160 meters all the way through to 50 meters or 5 meters, go up to 5 meter antenna, so forth. I mean, it covers the entire HF spectrum. HF is where you do most of your long distance communications. And there's the other one, the bigger one that was down there, the 991. It will also do interface with the computer without any extra equipment to do digital work on there. So it's
wow.
So a lot of guys will go on and do digital. They'll just basically send out their call sign and other people will answer. And there's a whole exchange area. It's called FT8 where they can do the exchange. I prefer. I'm more of a rag chewer, so I like to get in conversations with people. So I don't participate in FT8 very much, but a lot of guys will say, I need to get my 100 countries award. So they'll go and do that. It makes it easy.
That is so interesting. I've my grandfather and my uncle that both passed away. They were big into ham radios, so that's always interesting to hear about as well. I know we won't be able to talk at length about it, but you mentioned did you become a police officer before you ended up doing contracting, or was it contracting then police work?
I'll show you. Hang on a second.
Mm-hmm.
See if I can bring the picture up where you can see it. That was me as a cop.
Oh wow, great photo.
Was in Fayetteville. So when I finally went in retired, became a cop in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And then I went from there to the Secretary of State's office, the State Department.
Oh,
So
wow.
I became Diplomatic Protective Service.
Wow.
Did that.
Oh,
And then went to Computer Sciences Corporation. So I was doing that and designing systems for the federal court buildings, primarily for their whole internet system,
dang.
their computer system. So I was doing that for a few years. Then went to Memphis with WorldCom and was over there. And then WorldCom was moving headquarters. And this is before they got in trouble and shut down. As a matter of fact, I used my stock that I had with WorldCom that went back when it was worth something to pay for my daughter's wedding. The one that lives in Colorado, I paid for her wedding with that, about $15,000 worth. And so I'm glad I spent that because WorldCom became worthless afterward. Then I went over to Bangkok, and I was working over there with Drew Taylor. So Bob Taylor and I were the East Con Brew, because he spoke Brew.
We've had Brew on, and gosh, we love Brew. He is just an outstanding guy.
And he and I were working together over there for a while, and then came back. Let's see. Right after 2001, after 9/11 happened, shortly after that, I came back to the U.S. and got a job there at Fort Bragg, and then I wound up teaching at the anti-terrorism school.
Was that what you referred to as earlier as the Phoenix Academy, or was that it? Is that
No. I left there to go to the Phoenix Academy as a contractor.
Oh,
and
okay.
Then I was training people on how to be an advisor. The Department of Defense asked me to, is now the War Department, they asked me to put together a program to train people on how to be an advisor. And I said, sure. And I did all this, and I didn't have much time to do it. So
Of course.
I said, I need to speak with the instructors you're going to have teaching this thing. So I could fill them in on some of the things, because I didn't script the thing. I just put up the slides in the order in which they needed to be. And they said, well, we were hoping you'd do it. And I said, well, yeah. You're gonna. So I forgot what figure I told them. I think it was $200,000 a year. And they said, sure.
Okay.
And I said, damn it, why didn't I ask for $300,000? Let them negotiate. And they said, oh, sure. Well, so I went over to Iraq and was training at the Phoenix Academy, and then came back and went back to work at the anti-terrorism school. I spent a year over there at the Phoenix Academy. Wow. The day I left, a rocket struck. I was waiting to catch a helicopter over there at Taji, and a rocket struck my office.
Jeez,
And,
there again, fate coming into play for you.
And I had to wait. Instead of leaving right then, they diverted all traffic. So I had to wait till like 11 o'clock that night in order to get out. So we got back down there, called the wife immediately and said, look, if you get news about this, I'm okay. So came back to the States, and Joyce says, I really don't want you to go back there again.
You're done.
It was me getting there, taking the thing was kind of funny. Feeney had asked me to come over there and work with him.
Mr. Don Feeney?
Feeney.
Oh.
And I forgot his first name, but he and I knew each other. And he asked me to go to work, and I told him no. And I was discussing it with the wife. And I said, you know, he's going to want me to be running convoys and stuff like this. And I said, yeah. I said, if they was going to put me in an area where the risk was very low, I'd go ahead and do that. And she said, yeah, well, that wouldn't be too bad. And we quoted the salary that I would be making if I went. And right after that, I mean, literally the next day is when I got contacted about putting the course together. And then when they said, we're hoping you will do it. And I said, the whole thing. So I went back and told Joyce, I said, I'm heading to Iraq next week. And she said, wait a minute, what are you doing? And I said, yeah, I'm going to Iraq. She said, we didn't talk about this. She said, oh, yes, we did. You remember last week when you said, how often does a guy get to do it? Because wives are always saying, you remember 3 years ago when you said something. So I went there, but then I promised I wouldn't go back. So when we came back, I took a job after I was there at the anti-terrorism department for a while. And I took a job as the anti-terrorism officer. Carl Franquette and I were working together. At that point, we were with the U.S. Army Reserve. We were going around, and I had wound up in the southwestern portion of the U.S. So I moved out to New Mexico to deal with that. And that came to an end. At one point, they wanted to convert everyone over to the GS rank, and they already had their people that they wanted to do it. And I wasn't one of them, and neither was Carl. So we said, fine, we're getting out of here. And I went from there and found a job down at the Laughlin Air Force Base as the anti-terrorism officer there. And so I had all that border right along Texas and everything, collecting all that information. And that's when I decided we're going to retire. Now, here's a funny part. When I first came back from Iraq, I was going to buy a sailboat and retire on the sailboat. And the wife and I went down to St. Thomas, and we got on one of the boats, and she said, I don't like this. I said, why? What's wrong with it? She said, it's claustrophobic down there in the galley and everything, and where you have to sleep, you're closed in on. And I said, well, you know, that's why sailboats. She said, well, not those. And she pointed over there at the catamaran. And he said, that's very open. I said, yeah, it is. It also costs like 3 times as much.
Yeah.
So she said, well, I would do it on a catamaran. And I said, okay. So I continued to work all that time and got up enough money to buy a catamaran, a Gemini 3, and was all set. So we were down in Texas, and I said, we're going to buy this catamaran and I can just retire. And then in my 60s, you know, so I'm saying, oh, okay, we can retire. That was 2012. And she says, I really don't want to be on a boat. And I said, well, why? She said, I can't swim. So then me being the smart ass, instead of saying, you know, well, you're going to wear life jackets, you know, and I just said, well, you know, just swimming, all that's going to do is keep you alive until the sharks find you.
Oh.
And so that was stupid of me to say this. She said, do you know that for what it costs, maintenance on a boat, which is because she had been looking all this up. She had been researching this for a long time. Mooring fees, and she brought all this up so that we could fly to a country and stay in a hotel for less. And I said, yeah, you're right. So I had to agree with her because she was right. So I let her ruin my life. So she said, okay, so let's look at going to Italy. And I said, oh, no, if I don't get a boat, we're going back down. So that's why we went to Belize and then over to Costa Rica and then eventually over to Italy. Italy was really cool. Really liked it. there.
That-
But
that's a
she
beautiful.
won that argument just with pure logic. And I said, yeah, it does. It costs a lot more to do it, and you can't swim. So there we go. So the object of a boat is not to swim. Stay above the water.
Yeah, let it do the swimming for you.
Yeah, exactly. But at any rate, so we didn't do that, which saved me a ton of money.
Oh God.
And so we, like I say, went from there, spent that year in Belize, then a year in Costa Rica, and then over to Italy, and then all over the world. We just fly to places, and we'll find a place to rent over there and stay there. We like staying for a year at the places we go to. But the last 2 trips we've taken overseas, it's only been like a month that we've gone. So we went a couple of years ago. We went to London, Paris, and Portugal.
Jeez.
And I speak Portuguese, so that was perfect. We went to Portugal. I went to Porto, Portugal, and had a good time. Then flew back, and then last year we actually took a cruise for the first time, and we went from Turkey all through the Greek islands and to Athens, and then flew back. And so our next trip, I don't know where we're going for sure. But we're only going to be, we're tentatively planning to go to Germany. And
That would be a wonderful.
yeah, and we'll go in September, and that would be so we could be down in Munich during Oktoberfest.
Oh man.
And so she is. Well, I'll tell you what.
We're about to finish up. I know you're getting tired here. It's fine.
Well, it's the pollen making my eyes.
Oh yeah,
It's,
it's water and mine. I'm sure you can hear my voice. It's terrible down here as well. With you traveling so much, and we do have a few viewer questions here as we're winding up, but I'll ask it since we're talking places. What's your favorite military and just post retirement? What's your favorite place you've ever been?
Overall, in the U.S., my favorite place is Rio Rancho, New Mexico. It's just north of Albuquerque. It's in the high desert. Love it there. The overseas, the best place, 2 best places would be the UK, but before that, New Zealand. Loved New Zealand. It was absolutely a great place to be. Don't like to say this because I don't want too many people moving there and spoiling it. But and the UK. So we've toured York, which used to be called Jorvik, which is a Viking settlement, and the Robinsons are part of the Viking Scottish tradition. So they are related to the Clan Gun, which I mentioned before, and it's Gunny Alverson, who is the ultimate Viking. He established Clan Gun. So all the people with names like Henderson, Robinson, Wilson, those are all have a Viking tie to them to the UK. That's pretty cool. We would go there. Besides that, we don't have any trouble with the language. It's easy. My wife speaks French, and she's a linguist. So she speaks about 8 languages, and I do as well. They're not all the same language.
Y'all are covered everywhere you go then.
And Polish and Russian and so forth. And I learned a little Polish when I was a kid. Growing up in Detroit, it used to be a giant Polish neighborhood. And my mother's maiden name was Nijelski. So
ski at the end.
Yeah, so I knew a lot of guys there. And at St. Stephen's, it was when I was in grade school there, it was all Polish at that time. Not anymore, but that's what it used to be. So we immerse ourselves in a lot of languages. So learning that I learned some Spanish, Italian, and of course, Rade. I speak Rade, Jirai. And so yeah, just a bunch of languages.
Man. We had for the viewer questions here as we're getting ready to shut down because I didn't realize I had you now 2 hours and 15. Oh, code name. We see that it's attributed that you have the code name Evil Eye.
Yep.
How did that come about? Did you pick it? Was it assigned or?
No, I picked it when I was in the Mike Force. I had a Ron Barron was with me. His name was spelled Behrend. It sounds like Baron. So he used to be the Red Baron. And I was working with him. We were on the same team. So I became Snoopy. And then when we got up to CCN, somebody said something to me, and I just looked at him like I wanted to kill him. And said, "That's the evil eye." So that's that's what I did. And so it was Evil Eye. And it reminded me of Evil Eye Flegel from the Little Abner series.
That's a good code name and a good way to pick it up too. Shooting the evil eye off on somebody over there. The last three we've got here, they're dealing, I believe, militarily, or I guess you could, well, one of them, I guess you could incorporate to your whole life. What has been your most challenging aspect that you faced in your life?
God, I don't know. That's hard to say. I've had a pretty good life. So I really
jungle fight
challenging aspect of my life. Probably I've had cancer a couple of times now. I had it in my throat once, and had it prostate cancer that was really bad, and had to do radiation treatment and all kinds of injections, and the worry and doubt that you have coming from that is very troublesome. And then so it's just been a medical problem there. Normally I'm pretty active and everything, and I don't have too much problems like that. So when it restricts me from doing something, that's when I hate it.
This one will be tough to answer, but did you have a favorite group of Indigenous and American teammates? Did you think the Mike Force was your favorite group of team, or either Intruder or North Carolina, or did you even have a favorite?
No, I didn't have a favorite. I identify more at CCN with RT Intruder. I was with them the longest. But with the Indigenous people, the Rade, I was more comfortable around them. Like I say, could speak the language and everything. Yeah, as a matter of fact, he was forgot his name, Meng, I think. And he was the Indige team leader in the Mike Force. And then he joined us up at CCN later on. And so he left the Mike Force after Doc Peck. So he and I got along pretty well. We knew each other. He's a good guy.
Gosh, this history is just fantastic. And then you having all of your guys up there. I can see why Intruder is and you having your Indige from the Mike Force. That's really, really cool. I mean, you basically grew up and in combat with these guys. I mean, wow. Guys, I don't see any questions. I'm sure y'all were glued in like I was. Yeah, looks like we've got everything covered here. Yeah, I think we do. I will ask if there is anything that you would like to close out with or share as we begin to shut down.
Me?
Yes, sir.
No, nothing. I've had a real good life. Made a lot of real good friends. Unfortunately, we're hitting that age now where a lot of my good friends are dropping off, and I'm hoping to be the last member of CCNs. That's my goal. We
Well,
have matter of fact, we have a bottle of wine station is set up for the guy who is the last member. Butler set that up, Captain Butler. Well, later on he became Colonel Butler, but
Mr. Jim.
He died a few years ago, so I said, well, it's mine now. I just have to outlive everyone else to do it. So,
I'm sure Nick will try and fight you for
there
that
can be
one.
only one, you know.
I love that. Mr. Jim also helped create SOAR,
Yep,
or
he did.
SOA with the guys. So very important gentleman. Yeah, guys, I'll stay in touch. As you can tell, Mr. Robby travels and is quite busy. Yes, we will see maybe if we can talk about post 9/11 and some of his police work, if he'd be open in a few weeks, a month, or whenever he gets back from a vacation to join us. I'll definitely stay in touch and see if he'd be open to do that with us. But considering I've had you almost 2.5 hours today, I think we've covered part one. If we do a part two, I think we've covered a great deal today. If you will be open, we'd love to have you back. But if there's nothing else, guys, or if you've got nothing else to share, I believe we will go ahead and call it a day. I would like to end and say one thing right off the top. June 6th, I would like to thank all of our veterans that are still living, not many left, from WW2. I would like to thank the family members who had, like Mr. Robby, who had family members who fought in WW2. Our greatest generation. The Vietnam vets are now beginning to take their spot in the timeline of things. So very honored that we're able to cover their history and have still some of them around to talk about it. And I was glad to have Mr. Robby on here today to talk about his history on such an important day. So and thank you to our viewers who helped us upgrade with the audio, and just great interview and great June 6th. So Mr. Robby, can't thank you enough for sitting down with us, and I'll shoot this over to you to where you can watch it and have a copy, and I'll stay in touch with you.
Okay, thank you very much. And what are you going to email that to me?
Yes, sir. I'll email it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to download a special copy to where you don't have to get on YouTube, and that way you can just watch it whenever you have it, and you and the family can have it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Yes, sir.
And, I hope everyone has a great day.
I hope you do too, and let us know if you need anything, and I'll be staying in touch with you.